So I'm going to do a walkthrough demonstration of this printing costs program. So what this does is the user is going to enter in the number of copies they want, and the price of the copy varies depending on how many copies they make. If they only have 50 copies, it costs them 30 cents. If they have more than that, the price drops. So we're going to allow the user to enter in how many copies, and it's going to give us how much price per copy it is, and then the total cost of all of them. Then it's going to prompt them again, and it's going to keep allowing them to enter in how many copies they want until they choose to quit by typing in -1. I've already got JGrasp open here. I'm going to keep that there, and we're going to go File, New, Java. I'm going to type in class printing costs. I do have to have my main, so public static void main string args. Okay, I am going to need my scanner because I'm going to be reading in from the input. So import java.util.scanner, and the number of copies is a whole number. You can't have half a copy. So I'll probably want a couple of variables. I'll want an int for the printing cost, no, the number of copies, right? I'll need a double for the cost, and a double for the price per copy. I do want my scanner as well. That's another variable I'm going to need, so I'm going to get that up here. Scanner, I don't know, what do you call it? Input, keyboard? What have we been calling the scanner? Doesn't really matter, so I'm going to call it input. Can't remember what I've been calling it previous to now. I've called it different things. Scanner input equals new scanner system.in. Alright, so there's our variables so far. Okay. That's just based upon what I've needed here. I need the number of copies, the cost per copy, and the total cost. So the next thing I want to do is I want to prompt them to enter in the number of copies, or they'll choose to press -1 to quit. Alright, so that's just a system.out.print statement. System.out.println. Paste that in because I'm lazy. There we go. Now what am I reading from the keyboard? Well, I'm reading in the number of copies as an int. So I'm going to say num copies equals, I called it input .nextInt. Let's just compile this so far, make sure it works. I'm going to save the file in my documents folder. I must be having some errors because it's not saving correctly. Okay, so let's find out what errors we have. Aha! I'm missing a semicolon. I put a dot instead of a semicolon. Darn it. Hate it when I do that. Alright, now it's all complete. Yay! Okay, so let's continue on with this. Eventually I want to make this repeat. I'm going to put that part in last. For now, I'm going to do an if statement based upon the number of copies. Let's make this a little bigger so you guys out in digital land can see. Alright, so here is my price per copy. If the copy is greater than 1 or less than 99. Well, we already have that they're going to enter in -1 to quit. So let's put that in first. That way, if they choose to quit, they can, and it won't. Yeah, let's get our loop in now. So I want this to run at least one time because I want them to enter in the number of copies or choose to quit, but I at least want them to do that to get that far. I don't know how many times this loop is going to repeat, so I'm going to do a test at the bottom while loop. I'm going to say, go ahead and repeat this code. I'm going to tab everything here over once. That way, say every time you go inside another set of brackets, you tab it over. That way you can see what is contained inside what. Okay, so that's going to end about here. And I have to have my condition. Now in this case, it doesn't really matter what our condition is. We want to keep doing it. Well, we do know what our condition is, so long as the num copies is greater than 0, right? But we also don't want it to continue. So for example, I don't want it to calculate the costs if I put in -1. So I'm going to do an if statement that says if num copies is equal to -1, we are just going to break out of the loop, and that way it won't calculate the costs. It will skip down and then exit the program. Okay, so there's my if statement. Now this is not, the next one's, we can either do an else if or we can do a totally new if statement. Since it will never be the same, it doesn't matter which one. So just since we've been working on else ifs, I'm going to do an else if here. So the first one is if it's -1. The next one, if it's anything less than 100 or less than or equal to 99. Since it's an else if, it shouldn't consider like -1 at all. So here I'm going to say, I'll put the and in too. We don't want them to enter in negative copies, right? So if the num copies is greater than 0 and the num copies is less than, I can either do less than 100 or I can do less than or equal to 99. It's pretty much the same. So whichever you like there, that'll work. Okay, if that is the case, I can determine my price per copy. My price per copy is equal to 30 cents. There it is. Okay, I'm just going to, for the sake of being fast and speedy, I'm going to copy this else if statement, because my next else if statement, I'm going to line that up. Line up those else ifs because it really helps in debugging your code. I'm going to change that to this one. So I'm going to say if it's greater than 99 or greater than or equal to 100, both ways will work, and if it's less than 4 or equal to 4.99. If that's the case, then my copies are 28 cents. And I can keep doing that all the way through. I'm just changing the values of my statement. I'm going to go 500. So if it's greater than or equal to, what is it, 4.99? 4.99. I could either do that or greater than or equal to 500. Both ways will work. And then less than or equal to 9.99. Anything else, I can just put in an else here, because anything, we can go anything, great. I don't have to say greater than, but anything else, my last one's just going to be an else, a little catch-all that says every other copy is 25 cents. Okay, actually no, that won't work, because if they type in -500, it won't catch through any of these. So I do have to make that an else if. Greater than or equal to 1,000. Did I get all of them? Okay, so I found what my price per copy is. Notice I didn't do my total cost. I could put my total cost in there a couple of times, but since I've got my price per copy as a variable, all I have to do is use that variable. I can say my cost is equal to my price per copy times the number of copies I have. And that gives, so all I have to do now is display my information. I've got to display the price per copy and the total cost, which I've already calculated. This program's almost done. Price per copy, colon space, just so there's some spaces in there, and then I'll put in my variable, price per copy. There we go. And the last one I'm going to do is the total cost. Let's just cheat and copy and paste. That will save me some typing. So the total cost is, and then I can put total cost. Okay, so that should be it. This should now work. So I'm going to try some even numbers so I know. I'm going to try maybe 10 copies. 10 copies at 30 cents should give us, oh dang it, what am I missing? Number of copies, I'm missing a parenthesis here. Sorry about that. Don't forget to put your open and closing parenthesis in. Did I get any other errors? I did. What did I call total cost? I just called it cost. Darn it. Keep your variables straight, Mrs. Murphy. All right, hopefully that will be it. Price per copy. Okay, I can't spell it either. I'm just going to copy and paste. I don't know what's the difference? I'm not seeing that. Where is that at anyway? Price per copy may not have been initialized. Okay, here's an interesting statement. Since we don't have an else, let's suppose they enter in a negative value. Let's pretend they enter in -5. It's not going to come into any of these conditions. Since that's the case, that would make the price per copy undefined. There's two ways we can fix this. Number one, we can give it a default value of 0. That's one way of fixing it. Another way is to just make sure you have an else on here and say price per copy and just give it some default value. The only time they're ever going to get this one is if they type in a negative value, -7. They'll get price per copy as 0 and it won't give them an answer. Well, it'll give an answer, but it'll just give them a you know what we could do to switch this? Instead of saying if it's equal to -1, we can say if it's less than 0. If it's less than 0, it's just not going to calculate the number of copies and they'll fall out of the loop. That way we don't have to worry about it. But I still have my else to initialize my value just in case. Okay, so this should now be working. I'm going to type in 10 copies just to make sure it works. Price per copy is 30 cents. The total cost is $3. Then I can choose to enter in another number. Let's do greater than 99. Let's do 100. So 28 cents a copy. It's $28. That's kind of pricey for copies, isn't it? Now we can see if it works for quitting. So I'm going to do -1 to quit and it should exit my program. Okay, so that is it. I hope we've demonstrated if statements and else if statements and do while loops, and we'll catch you on the next time. Good luck on the programming assignment.